The Raptors are in the rumor mill and things are interesting. What's up, everybody? It is JJ Buckets and we are here as usual to talk basketball. Of course we are. That's why you keep coming to this channel. Conversation of the day is going to be around OG Anunoby. Of course it is. I'm sure a lot of people have seen the tweets, have seen the rumors, so on and so forth. So we're just going to do a breakdown of that today and figure how it bodes for the Raptors moving forward and what the decision can/should be. Now, before I fully get into things, obviously, as usual, just make sure you're leaving a like on the video. It takes no amount of time and it makes a huge difference for me, so thank you if you're doing that. And if you're new here, subscribe as well. The subscriber counts have been going great the past few videos, so let's just keep that momentum. It is fantastic. I love to see it. And yeah, besides for that, let's hop into the video. So this is a bit of a tough one for me personally because cards on the table, OG Anunoby has been my favorite Raptor for a little while now, at least. At the very least, since Kyle Lowry has kind of left, although I mean Scottie Barnes is making a good case for himself in that regard too. But I'm going to try to leave my bias at the door here, so to speak, and look at it, as unbiasedly, is that a word? With as little bias as I can, and just look at the roster construction and potential here in terms of this discussion. So there, I think, are three ways that you can look at this, right? It's the argument to keep OG Anunoby, which I think there's a good argument for it. It's the argument to trade OG Anunoby for somebody that, is a ready-made player in the NBA and potentially you can make the argument would fit better with the roster or fit a need that the Raptors have. Or you could potentially move up in the draft if there's somebody you really like. I think that's the third avenue here. So let's talk, right? First and foremost, I think should be said that, a lot of people are questioning the sources of the man that is reporting on the whole OG thing, so bear that in mind as we have the rest of this discussion. But let's talk OG Anunoby. When it comes to keeping OG Anunoby and the argument for that, I think it's plain and pretty simple. He's 24 years old, first of all. He's still fairly young. He definitely has not hit the best potential I think that he can. I worded that weirdly, but you know what I mean. He's gotten to a level that he can potentially get to. He's somebody that's gotten better every single season, and there's a lot to like about him. There really is. Like, every single season he adds a little trinket to his game. I think there is a bit of a discontent with some Raptors fans in terms of maybe OG Anunoby doesn't come along as quickly as they would expect it. Like, I know there are times where people are expecting leaps and bounds, where he kind of more so gives you like little hops, if that analogy works for you, where he gets a little bit better, but not like massively better very quickly, as some people, anticipate at times. So there's a bit of impatience there, I think, from what I've seen, but he is somebody that is consistently getting better, and every single season he's gotten a little bit better at something at the very least. And he's quietly turned himself into a very good player in the league and can continue to do so, especially obviously with Nick Nurse, with Masai Ujiri and this Raptors organization. He's somebody that has definitely not reached the peak of who he's going to be in this league. So, do you like that enough, and do you like the promise of OG Anunoby to really want to hold on to him here and really keep him over the potential of seeing another piece come back your way, in any potential trade? Now, the argument obviously against keeping OG is the one that's been quietly building, I think, over the past few years as well, similar to his game, I guess. It's the health issues, right? It's something that I know has kind of like not snuck up on me, but it's something that's become more present, I think, in people's minds in recent seasons, that like OG Anunoby is not really staying on the basketball court as much as you would like in terms of the injuries. So I think a big part of this discussion is really how much do you believe in OG Anunoby's health and OG Anunoby's capabilities to stay on the court, because if he's giving you 50 games a season and part of those also involve him kind of shaking the rust from being injured. That's not the greatest scenario to be stuck in as a team for a multitude of reasons, naturally. I mean, on top of the fact that he's not capitalizing on who he is as a player to, reaching his max potential because he's always injured. There's also the argument of building team chemistry with guys in and out of the lineup. So that is something that's concerning, needs to be thought about when it comes to this regard. But again, he's very young, he's very talented, so the argument is good for keeping him as well. Again, the health thing is fairly concerning, I would say, at this point. Now, the other two arguments here are naturally the ones that I mentioned earlier. So you can make an argument that, the Raptors are further along than you thought in, I guess, the timeline of how quickly they would be getting back to being a contender, or at least close to it. And on top of which, you have three players in Scottie Barnes, Pascal Siakam, and OG, who are all kind of natural fits at the forward position, and you only have 2 forward slots. And now, naturally, you can keep going with what you've been going with and running Siakam as kind of like the pseudo 5-man, and have all these three guys on the court together. That's fine. That's definitely an avenue that you can keep going with. But at the same time, if you feel like there is some redundancy between OG, Pascal, and Scottie, there's at least a discussion to be had in terms of shaking up the roster and pursuing something that might be a better fit. Now, naturally, when you're shaking things up there, you're not going to be giving up Scottie, because Scottie just got Rookie of the Year. He's showing more potential, quite frankly, than OG, I think, in the long run. And yeah, Siakam, on the other hand, is your ready-made star. He's a fantastic player in this league. And, push comes to shove. Like, obviously, he's a little bit older, but at the same time, he's also a lot more proven in terms of what he can do. So at this point, OG kind of feels like the odd man out there, that if you're going to shake up that forward core and, bring in a different piece to potentially complement the rest of the lineup, OG might be the guy that you're moving on from, right? I think that's probably where these rumors started and stemmed from. And with OG Anunoby, like, if you're just looking around the league, obviously guys like Miles Turner come to mind, where you look at Miles, you look at him and think of him as a potential fit on the Raptors, and he's a good one. Needless to say, he's a good one. And the contracts match up really well too, so that deal's not a hard one to get done. On top of which, you can potentially look to haggle for more pieces there. You can get a valuable bench scorer like Buddy Hield as well from the Pacers if you're really angling for that. And there's a lot of potential there. Past that, obviously, another discussion that has been had this Raptors offseason is DeAndre Ayton. You can use OG Anunoby in a potential sign and trade for that situation. If you believe in Ayton, if you like the promise of what DeAndre Ayton can be, that is another avenue to be explored. And it's not a bad one depending on who you ask, right? And then obviously the other option that I've talked about at the beginning as well is, if the Raptors really love a guy early enough in the draft that they think they can develop and they can turn into a player that will be better than OG Anunoby, you can dangle him in a potential trade there. I mean, I even think about a situation like the Portland Trail Blazers. They are desperate, and I mean desperate, to surround Damian Lillard with supporting talent. So maybe you leverage OG to jump to that point in the draft. Alternatively, you have also heard rumors that Sacramento is willing to part with their pick, and they're willing to trade it for a guy that will help them win now. OG Anunoby can be that dangling piece in that trade. And again, then you jump to a pretty prominent position in the draft and get somebody that you feel comfortable that you can develop and, into a better player in the long run. My only thing against the draft is just the uncertainty of the draft. And when it comes to these players, obviously, it's so easy to look at the kind of glossy potential that these guys have coming into the league and fall in love with it, and a lot of times they don't always end up reaching it. But the only thing is with the Raptors, like in their development, like if there's gonna be a situation in the league where a player can be everything he can be, like teams like Toronto, teams like Golden State come to mind, like teams like that have just fantastic player development, like like of all the places in the league, sorry, what I'm saying is, of all the places in the league, Toronto is definitely one of the best places to potentially capitalize on all the potential that you have. So that kind of throws the initial thing of, you know, they don't always reach their full potential out the door. Not entirely, but at least a little bit more so than it would in other situations. Funny enough, because we mentioned Sacramento, like in a place like Sacramento, players don't always hit and players don't always develop, but that's not, I would say, the story in Toronto, more like in most cases. So there's a lot to consider here, right? Personally speaking, if I had to weigh my opinion on it, I think I would lean towards keeping OG Anunoby at least for the near future. I still think there's enough to like about him that you're willing to potentially see how the injury concerns progress. And at that point, like, the risk there is, you know, if the injury concerns do come back, like he all of a sudden becomes a less valuable trade asset. So that's the counter argument to that. But at 24, I still think the guy is young enough and it may be a little too early to give up on him. So that's probably my 2 cents on the matter. But as I said earlier in the video, I'm a little biased, and as much as I try to keep it out, it'll get in a little bit. So what do you folks think? What do you make of the OG Anunoby rumors, the situation? What do you folks feel like is the right path here? Comment below, let me know your opinions on the matter, and to reiterate everything from the beginning of the video, like it if you enjoyed what you watched today. It takes no amount of time, and I'm super appreciative every time you folks do it because it helps the video perform better, so thank you. And if you like what you watched today and you're new here, subscribe to the channel as well. We're on a march to 1K. That march has significantly sped up these last few videos, so again, let's keep that momentum. It's been JJ Buckets. It has been an absolute pleasure as always, and I will see everybody on the next video. I'm out.